There's three questions we all ask at various stages of our lives. What do I want to do? Where do I want to do it? And how will I do it? And we ask those questions during times of transition, like when we're going from high school to college, or when we're changing jobs, or making a career move, or even when we're thinking about retirement. The problem with answering those questions is that we're reliant on the answers that the world provides for us in terms of what we can do, and what we can say yes to, where we go. The good news is that there is a better way, or there at the very least is another way. And that comes in having the ability to start stuff. Now, if you know how to start something, if you know how to take an idea and turn it into something that provides value and meets people's needs, pretty soon your life changes dramatically. And you can even get to the place where you can do what you want, where you want, and in the way you want. You can, in a sense, become master of your own destiny if you know how to take an idea and turn it into something that provides value. Now, unfortunately, I didn't know that when I graduated from college. I, like lots of college graduates, just figured that stuff would work out. And so I was living in Utah, where I graduated from the University of Utah, and I figured I'd just start trying some things. And so I decided, and maybe I wasn't very focused, but I decided that what I should try is to be a ski bum. And so I stayed for a couple more ski seasons in Utah, and I got a job as a bartender, and I did other odd jobs, though I can tell you that being a bartender in the state of Utah is an odd job. Thank you. And that was okay for a couple of years. And then I thought, well, maybe it's time to try business, because a lot of people were pushing me and pointing me in that direction. And so I sold dental pharmaceuticals for a while. And in Griffith, Indiana, I sold used foundry equipment. And it was only after I spent 3 years in graduate school, 1 year in San Francisco, and 2 years in Chicago studying theology, that I finally got on track. And I knew the answer to question one. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a minister. And when I was offered a job at an extraordinary church in Indiana, Second Presbyterian Church, I knew where I wanted to be. So I answered the second question. And I figured, this is pretty good. I've got 2 out of 3. Life is all right. The problem is, when I started my job, I realized that I hadn't given much thought to that third question. How would I be spending my days? And in fairly short order, found out that it wasn't exactly a great fit. The first time was when I was scheduled to do my first wedding ever. And the rehearsal was in this giant cathedral setting, very formal kind of place. I'm not that formal of a guy. This is as close as I get to formal. And I walked into the sanctuary, and there was a bride. She was tall and beautiful in a long dress. She had 7 bridesmaids. The groom had a suit on. All the groomsmen. This is for the rehearsal. And I had shown up in Birkenstocks, shorts, and a Hawaiian shirt. Needless to say, my boss shared with me shortly thereafter that that wasn't the appropriate liturgical garb to lead a wedding rehearsal. Another time, when I found out that how they needed me to be a minister and how I wanted to be one wasn't a fit, was when one day I had office hours. And that meant I had to sit in my 3rd floor office all day and do all sorts of things, but basically I had to be there. Well, I looked out the window, and it was a glorious, sunny day. And the trees were waving, and the birds were singing, and I couldn't stand being inside. It made me nuts. And then I realized, if I opened my window as wide as it would go, that I could set my chair. On the other side of my window was the 2nd floor roof of the Christian education building. So I put my chair through there, and I got a little table, and that fit through the window. And back in the days when phones had extension cords, it went all the way out, and I set my phone up. And then I went to the janitor's closet and got one of those orange extension cords, and I hooked up my hot air popcorn machine so I could have popcorn. And I set up shop, and I figured, well, if I'm going to work out here, I might as well catch some rays. This will be great. Well, once again, it was shared with me that it's probably not a great fit for our ministers to be having their office hours on the church roof. The truth is, it wasn't a fit. I wasn't about to get fired, but it wasn't working in the way that anyone would have hoped. And that's when I started something. That's when I started something called Aquatic Experience. Now, it was ambiguously named by design, and it was done very tongue-in-cheek. Every Sunday during the summer, when the church bulletin would have this fancy kind of font, would always say, Reverend Dickelman will be leading Aquatic Experience this afternoon following worship, as well as on Tuesday afternoon and Thursday evening of this week. Well, Aquatic Experience was basically my taking groups of people in their 20s and 30s and teaching them to windsurf. I had been certified instructor a couple of years before, and it was fantastic. Now, was it a crazy idea? Absolutely. Indianapolis is the largest landlocked city in the United States. And you don't exactly go to church to learn to windsurf. But what happened is it met needs of people in the group. They learned something new. They laughed. They had fun. It was physical, which was invigorating for lots of folks. They connected with each other. They connected with one of the ministers. They started to learn more about the church. It was an absolute home run. In an Aquatic Experience, I learned that if you know how to start something, you have the ability to reshape your life. If you have the ability to take an idea and turn it into something that can meet the needs and provide value of other people, there's not much in the way of limits in terms of what you can or can't do for your life. Now, I'm not going to say that if you're like Jack Schuler, who started businesses, that you have to follow the same process as someone like me who started a not-for-profit or a church. If you're starting a program, a business, a church, an organization, the process you follow will be different. But what I found in the different organizations that I've started during the course of the last 20 or 30 years, I found out that there's a pattern. These are a couple of the groups I've been involved in starting. KidsUganda, some of you have heard of that. It's 10 years old. We serve children in Uganda in a rural area outside of Midiana. In the last 10 years, we've been able to raise $1.5 million and send 75 people from Lake Forest and Lake Bluff on short-term mission trips. The Dancing Bohemian School of Youth. If you want to start something, the best thing you do is pay attention. So 3 years ago, I started a group called the Dancing Bohemian Ukulele Team. There's 8 of us. And we play once in a while in church, and we play to people's weddings, if you can imagine that, though not at the church that I told you about. And even this February, we're going to be playing in New Orleans. So it's a blast. But I noticed every time we played, people would come up afterwards and say, where'd you guys learn to play? Well, guess what? We started a ukulele school. The first time, the Dancing Bohemian School of Youth. And the first series of classes, we had 30 people signed up without really even publicizing. The Center for Innovative Ministry is about providing something I started a couple of years ago, providing innovative tools for ministers to help them solve problems and create opportunities. Wind Blessed, 15, 16 years ago when I started our church, we didn't have any money. And it was a business that I started. It was a business that I started that gave us the chance to make a little money and pay our mortgage. Finally, the community church in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, something I started 16 years ago, and it seems like it's a crazy idea to start a church. I guarantee you it is. But it's also one of the couple of best things I've ever done in my life. It's provided me the foundation to do all these other sorts of things. What I want to do is briefly share the 5 common lessons or things that I've found to be true and present in everything I've started. And so keep these in mind. First, if you want to start something, meet the needs of other people. That is, speaking of meeting my needs, thank you. Very good. If you want to start something, meet the needs of other people. Can I give that to you? Thank you. The truth is, when I started the aquatic experience, did I want to get out of the church office? Absolutely. Did I want to go windsurfing 3 or 4 times a week? Absolutely. But it only happened because I understood and met the needs of other people. I don't care what you start, if it's a business, a not-for-profit, whatever, meet the needs of other people and your needs will be met. I got mixed up, I thought that was the mic. There we go. Second, problems or opportunities. When we started the community church 16 years ago, we went for 3 years just having seasonal ministry. That meant we did it during the school year and then took the summer off to try and do some other things and make a little money. And we recognized that the church went south big time, and it didn't start up as a vital, dynamic organization in the fall, so we realized we needed to keep going during the summer. But A, the chapel that we rented at Lake Forest College wasn't available to us in the summer, and B, we didn't have money to rent anywhere, even for one Sunday, let alone a whole summer. So what we did is we looked around and we decided to go to the beach in Lake Bluff. And we went there not because I'm a brilliant strategist. We went there because it was free, and at 8 o'clock in the morning it was quiet, and we could sneak down there and no one would know, and it worked out perfectly. Not to mention the fact that there's no more glorious kind of place for worship, I think, than outside and certainly on the beach. What turned out to be the greatest blessing, maybe the greatest blessing our church has ever had, which is discovering this beach, started out as a problem. If you start something, I guarantee you, you're going to have problems. Try and have a great attitude and recognize that, like for us, problems are opportunities in disguise. Now, 12 years later, after we started worship on the beach, we actually have more people come to church in the summer than we do the rest of the year. Third, listen to others. If you start something, I guarantee you that there will be people who are critics. That's because maybe that's their nature, and they'll tell you all the reasons that it won't work, or what you need to do, or why it's going to go wrong, etc., etc. And there are all the other people on the other side who pat you on the back and say, this is awesome, you go for it. You can make it happen. You're the cheerleaders. And you'll have everybody on this end and on this end rooting you on, and there'll be people in between. I say listen to them. Even if you speak to an expert about what you want to start, listen to them. I listened to someone who was an expert, though, and I listened to a little too intently. I had to write a doctoral thesis, and I was going to write it on this church idea, this innovative church I wanted to start. And so I had a chance to sit down with this legendary church guy, Dr. Carl Dudley. And I needed his approval to finish my thesis and write my thesis on this new church I wanted to start. And so I handed him my proposal, and he read it, and he just sat there in this leather chair, and big hairy Carey kind of glasses and bushy eyebrows. And after he read it and thought for a few moments, he looked up at me and offered 6 words. Interesting idea. It will never work. And frankly, I made an error, because I said, well, Carl, you're an expert. I guess you're right. For the next 6 or 7 years, I didn't start the church, primarily because I listened to Carl. But what was present was a still small voice in my heart that would not be quiet. And finally, I recognized the only way to deal with that voice that wouldn't give up on this idea was to go ahead and try it. So what I hope you hear is that there will be people rooting you on, and there'll be people that think you're crazy, and everything in between. Listen to them, but most of all, listen to your heart. Fourth, build in joy. I don't care what you start. If you start a church or a business or a program here at the high school, in every organization, in every way under the sun, there's a place for joy. Is there anyone who doesn't like to smile? Is there anyone who doesn't like to laugh? Is there anyone who doesn't like the feeling of simply having fun? Some people say, well, you know what? You're in the church business. What's supposed to be fun about that? Well, you know what? Everybody's stressed, everybody's anxious, and if we can provide enjoyment for people's lives, that's worth the time and energy. Build in joy. And even if you're starting a business like Mr. Schuler, and the bottom line is all about building shareholder value, I would submit that one of the ways that you can build shareholder value and a great culture when you start something is by building in joy. And if you don't believe me, then read about the Google culture and what that organization is like. Finally, oh, we skipped one. Well, I guess the fifth one isn't in there. I'll show you this. This is our logo for the church because we want to make a very clear statement about joy. This logo is for a friend of mine, Ryan Althouse, who's down in Louisville. He started a church called Sweaty Sheep. Ridiculous name for a church. But he got tired of no one ever showing up in church. And he's an athlete, so he said, you know what, if you can't beat him, join him. So he got this idea that he'd go meet people at races and triathlons and go where they are. And they got these shirts with a Sweaty Sheep logo. And now that church is thriving and it's going to other metropolitan areas throughout the United States. But he said right out of the gate, you know what? Let's have fun with this. G.K. Chesterton said, angels can fly because they take life lightly. No matter what you start, build in joy. Here's our dancing bohemian ukulele team. Church music doesn't have to be pipe organs and handbells. You can do things differently. You can build in joy. Now you might recognize the backs of a few of these guys. They're some of the senior men here at Lake Forest High School back in the 6th grade. And I think even in the white NVA shirt is Matthew Cook, who's going to speak in just a few moments. One Sunday every year at the beach we have a walk on water contest. Why can't it be enjoyable? I guarantee you, they'll remember that story. Here it is finally. Lesson 5, success is a result, not a goal. We get so focused on meeting goals that it takes us down the wrong path. If you are successful, that's a result. Take care of the people whose needs you endeavor to meet. Build value, provide value in their lives. Success will come. A closing thought. So I've been in business and I've been a minister for about 30 years. Jack, you still have a few years on you. If there's one thing I've learned in 30 years, it's this. And if you forget anything else I say, please remember this. You don't want to come to the end of your life kicking yourself in the tail for not having tried things that were in your heart and in your mind. You don't want to be kicking yourself for the opportunities you never pursued. While you have an opportunity, go for it. Make it happen. So when you do get to that place towards the end of your life, you can say, this is what I did. This is where I did it. This is how